filter, no filter, no apologies. Strong women, real talk, no feelings. We rise together, we say it loud.
High-achieving women often carry a quiet, exhausting question. Am I actually good at this? Or did I just get lucky? That question is a real reaction to real patterns, being the only one in the room, getting feedback that never quite lands, standards that seem to shift depending on who's being judged. Today, we're naming those patterns clearly and handing you real, usable tools to move through the feeling itself, tools you can start using this week. This is a solutions episode built around action and that sneaky little devil, imposter syndrome.
It is a sneaky little devil, isn't it?
It really is, because you could be the most qualified woman in a room amongst anyone in the room, right? Degrees, experience, battle tested, as people say, and then you'll still question whether or not you belong in that room. Or if you're me, over prepare.
Yeah.
I'm constantly over preparing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because when you start in a new industry or with a new organization, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think there's always that initial, do I belong here? What am I doing? Thought pattern. And then once you start getting more acclimated and understanding the business, for me at least, I know that I get more comfortable and I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to be here. This is where I'm supposed to be. And I know in speaking to you and other women that I'm friendly with, imposter syndrome is so dominant in females in the work environment. And I'm sure it stems from being in a world built by men for men, right?
Yeah.
So women are more likely to have it. That's the one thing you didn't look up, was if men actually deal with imposter syndrome at such a high percentage, or is it just women?
I'm sure they deal with imposter syndrome. I don't know about the percentage. Is there such a difference? And I also think that the criticisms that women receive in the workplace are often tied to likability as opposed to skill set. So then organically you may question, okay, I have all of the credibility, but do they like me in this room? Do I belong in this room? And it's, yeah, you do. If you're in the room, you belong there. So take your seat and take up space.
Yeah.
Man spread if you want to. I mean,
that's what I do. I'm like crap everywhere.
And I can tell you, I think I had imposter syndrome more earlier in my career when I would be invited into rooms with executive leadership and things like that, because I would feel like I'm just starting out. How did I land in this room? And it happened to me very early, multiple times. But I realized I was invited into that room based on a high level of work that I had done or something excellent that I had done.
Right.
And looking back, I realized I deserved to be in that room at a young age. Looking forward, when I would go into these rooms, the higher I got or the higher levels I would deal with, whether working in an organization or even just consulting with someone, you start to realize that everybody's just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And there might be some really brilliant people in there who are experts, who are the kind of people that you want to put in your circle in the future because they're going to help you grow. And then there are people you question, who tied your shoes for you this morning and got you to this meeting? Because I can't believe you're in here with what you just said. And so once you're in those rooms and you realize it's just a group of people figuring it out, and you realize, yes, you definitely belong there, you settle in and get rid of that imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, like I said, I feel like if anything, it was more so in changing industries or starting a new role that I would have the imposter syndrome. But other than that, I don't know that I've ever really dealt with it so much. And one of my girlfriends that I met in the Women in Executive Leadership course, she struggled with it significantly and kept saying, I want to do this, but I don't want to do this. And why can't I get rid of my imposter syndrome? And it was a constant battle. And then towards the end of our class, when we all did our final presentations, she finally realized that she was light years beyond where she was physically at in her role. And that she finally got rid of that imposter syndrome, right? Just by having the support of the community and positive reinforcement, because I do believe she was in a place where she wasn't getting that positive feedback, even though she was doing so many positive things.
Right. Yeah.
Because you
Was
have
she a
to
high
think,
achiever? She a high achiever?
yeah,
I think high achievers almost have more imposter syndrome than non-high achievers simply because what is it? The higher the stakes, right? The higher the visibility. If you're a high
yeah,
achiever, then the riskier it feels and you really
yeah,
start to question yourself and your ability and your performance. And something funny that I was in a conversation with somebody, we were actually talking about Gen Z and initiative, and this is how
yeah,
this came up. But I was talking about how so many times I've been asked to do things that I had no experience in, I had no idea, but I was asked to do it. So I went and figured it out. Took a course, I got a certification, I went through a training, I did a bunch of research, whatever it was, I just went and figured it out. And so my briefcase of expertise has grown over the years
yeah,
because of that initiative. And also that's what really helped me grow in my career because I may not have had that experience when you asked me, but I sure as hell went out and got it. And even just that initiative was a big step in saying I'm not an imposter because I went and figured out how to do it. Now I know how to do it and nobody else can. And so now they're coming to me for more and more because even if I don't know how to, I'm going to go figure it out. And that's
yeah,
something I became known for. So I think when you do things like that too, it helps your imposter syndrome to go, it's okay that you don't know today, but go figure it out. Go find a way. There's always a way.
yeah. It's so funny you say that because one of the things, and I shared this before, growing up, my mom said I could always do what I want to do, reach for the stars. Nothing's out of reach, right? So I always had that in the back of my head that I think that's why minimal imposter syndrome, right? Just because of how I was raised too. But even as a child, if I wanted to know the words to a song, I would sit there with my tape recorder and pause and write the words out and get all the lyrics, right? I always just, it was just something I did. I would, to your point, figure it out. And because I always did that, as I got into the work environment, I wouldn't wait for people to tell me to do things. I would just figure shit out and go do what I needed to do to be successful where I was, right? I'd take, and even in retail, I created a quick reference guide for a new point of sale system that came out and then trained and sent it to all of our new managers or all the managers who were going to have it. And so that had a light shine on me. And then I was promoted and moved to Texas and all these positive things came out of it. Nobody told me to do it. Nobody asked me to do it, but I was like, oh, let me just be helpful. Right. And so I think that it helps with not having the imposter syndrome because you just go and get shit done.
It definitely does. And you just made me realize both of us just talked about a common theme, which is imposter syndrome is simply a lack of confidence in who you are. Confidence is built through action. You can't learn it. It's built through action. It's built through taking the steps and experiencing the success. And both you and I just shared stories where we didn't know what to do. We went and figured it out. We built confidence as a result of that and we're able to move forward. So I think if you're struggling with imposter syndrome today because you feel like you don't know something or you're ill-equipped, start taking action to figure out how to fill that gap and you'll be confident soon enough and that imposter syndrome will go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. What are some of the environments that amplify it that our listeners can look out for? One of them I think is
we talked about the feedback, right? So if you're in a position, and I've had this, I'm sure you've been in this position too, where you're reporting to someone who may not be as experienced as you are in your area of expertise. And so their feedback tends to be degrading or demeaning because they're attacking you more than the work than you're producing.
yes.
Then you're definitely going to have a lack of confidence and you feel like an imposter because the person that you're reporting to is telling you that you're basically not supposed to be here in whatever feedback they're giving you because they're insecure in their ways. Right. And so they're, what's that called? When they're projecting onto you how they feel. And it's not a healthy environment. And when you have those situations, definitely call to assess and step away you're never going to be able to grow because the person above you is not going to let you grow.
I think too, along that same line is just the lack of specifics in the feedback, right? So you could get feedback from someone that would just say, I'd like to see you be a little more helpful. And when you do an inventory of how helpful you are, you're like, I'm very helpful. So you start to have a conversation about, okay, I'm helpful in these 8 ways. Where would you like me to be more helpful? Or would you like me to be different? And then you can't get those clear answers. Yeah, just a little more. If you don't have, what did we say last time? Like clear is kind.
Yeah.
So if you don't give clear feedback, what happens is we fill in the gaps on our own. And what we're filling it in with may not be true. And then we're going to have continued imposter syndrome, because now you're going, I'm not helpful enough. And if I'm not helpful, what am I doing? And you start doing all this crazy stuff to be helpful. And it's not really what anybody needs you to do, wants you to do, or it's certainly not furthering your career. So I think that's something too, that vague feedback. One that I hear a lot, but I don't understand, maybe you've had this experience, is feeling the imposter syndrome when you are the only woman in the room or one of 2 or 3 women in a room. Have you felt that?
No, because when I have been the only woman in the room, I don't know, I don't want to say this in a bad way, and I don't put their feedback down, but sometimes I'll be like, no, we're not doing that, right? Some of the ideas that will come up or feedback from a candidate, and I'm like, no, we're not going to talk about them that way, right? Like course correcting in a sense. So I don't feel like I've had it in a room of men, but also they're usually goofier men too, so they don't take themselves too seriously. But yeah, I don't think I'm trying to think back on other roles. Haven't really had it in other places, because I'm either usually the external partner supporting, which they're looking to me for my expertise, or they're just a bunch of goofballs. So I haven't really felt that.
I've been in multiple rooms with men in power. I told you I was raised around U.S. Marines, so I can't tell you how many times I was walking in, even as a little girl, to rooms of U.S. Marines, and you have to have a firm handshake and make direct eye contact and introduce yourself. And so I've never been intimidated by being the only woman in the room. I've never felt like an imposter because I was the only woman in the room. And I think what some women have shared with us is they feel there's extra scrutiny on everything that they do. And I would challenge that a little bit, because it might be that you're scrutinized everywhere you go anyway. People are going to judge you. People are going to assess you. People are going to do that, whether it's all men and just you, or whether it's a mixed gender group. They're questioning you anyway. So that might be some of our own internalized feelings as well. And that contributes to the imposter syndrome. So I think focus on the self, right?
Yeah.
Focus on what you have, what you've been asked to do in that room, and why you're the one who's been asked to do it. And then walk in there like that person.
Yeah. And like one of the things they always say is, you may not be able to control how people react to everything, or how they act, not even react, but you can control how you react. And so if you're not getting clear feedback, you can control the follow-up questions. If you feel you're getting scrutinized by an individual, you could have a conversation, or you could just step away from the uncomfortable situation, right? Whatever path is better for you. But I think knowing, to your point, knowing yourself and how you're going to respond and react to certain things is going to determine how it plays out.
100%. So there's a mindset shift with that. I talked about one where it's, hey, remember why you're in the room in the first place, and put everyone else back in the shadows so that you don't fall into that imposter syndrome. But we talked about confidence before confidence. You got to build that confidence, and it'll get you there. And then you just made a great point of, what are you feeling versus what is the fact of the situation? What are you projecting? What are they projecting? What are you feeling in this moment versus what is factual? I think that's another big one.
And the feeling versus fact, I know we've discussed this many a times, because situations you and I have been in at previous employers, and coming in with the facts and leaving the feelings behind is really going to get you the results or a better outcome than coming in with the feelings. And I think if there are feelings, so going back to the feedback, if someone provides you feedback and it's not clear and you're confused, but you're so taken aback by the way that they've delivered the information, you need time to decompress and think about it, collect the facts, and then come back and have a conversation. But yeah, I think it's very important to make sure that they're the facts and you're not leading with the feelings, because I don't know that you'll get the results that you want leading with those feelings, right?
There's an old saying, don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions.
Yeah.
Take a step back and think about what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, what's going on
Yeah.
there. So I think that's applicable here too, because it's not
Yeah.
always accurate information. That's a great
Correct.
point.
One of the other things with the mindset shift is one of the things that we've discussed this before. I know you've done it on your teams. I've done it with my teams, is always celebrating the wins, right? And so
Yes.
as, as you're working, go through and outline what you've accomplished in your role, outline what you do, and keep a running list. Because I will tell you, in the moment, I couldn't tell you, right? So I have to make a list and have it to reference because there's so much that you do on a regular basis. You don't even realize what you're doing. 'Cause
Yes.
It just ends up being on autopilot. And I think having that record for yourself, forget about everybody else. It gives you the opportunity to be able to recall what you're doing and, oh my God, look at all these things I'm doing. And then you can speak to them more intelligently once you have that running list, as opposed to like me, I'm like, wait, what do I do?
I always do Win Fridays. I have Win Fridays on all my sites because I think it's so important to recognize big wins, small wins, and train your brain to recognize wins because there's actual psychology behind that. When
Yeah.
you celebrate wins, your brain trains yourself to want more of that. And so you start looking for ways to win and you have this natural momentum building that you don't even realize simply because you're celebrating the wins. And I challenge people all the time. I've had a couple people that I'm an accountability partner for them. So I'll reach out to them and say, where are your wins today on Fridays? And sometimes the win is a big promotion. You closed a major deal. You implemented a big project. Sometimes they're big, major wins. Sometimes the win is you survived a week from hell.
Yeah.
Sometimes you survived a week of chaos where you were hitting all of these deadlines at work and you were baking cupcakes for the kids' bake sale at school and getting Johnny's costume ready for his play and going to dinner with the in-laws who were in town. And yet you survived all of it without losing it. And sometimes that's a win. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for those things, for balancing those. Yes, I'm with you 100% celebrating the wins, big, small, in the middle, and recognizing sometimes just surviving is a win too.
Yes. Have many of those.
Yeah. I try to do it every Friday to look back at, I'm a list person. I rate my list every day. I also, because nothing goes according to my plan ever, I will, if things come up that I have to tackle during the day that weren't on my list, I write them on my list and cross them off. It gives me a sense of accomplishment. And it reminds me when I look back on Friday to think about my wins. Wow, I originally outlined 11 things to do on Monday and I ended up doing 16 because these other emergency things came up and I got them all done. And that helps me recognize my wins. So if you're a list person, write your list, add stuff to your list that you do that wasn't originally on it.
Yeah.
And celebrate it.
A feeling of accomplishment is really important too. I understand the crossing off on the list.
Yeah. So we need a practical toolkit to navigate those feelings of imposter syndrome, right? I think everybody's different. You have a one-line script you tell yourself, or you have your truth circle group, which is a group of friends or colleagues who will always hold you accountable, but will always tell you the truth, good and bad. And then you have your own sort of internal markers. Can you think of any others?
I would say really the accountability partners, right? You have that, what do you call them? I guess it's like your circle of trust, if you will, right? What is that from? That movie, the Ben Stiller movie.
Oh, I thought it was from the Fockers.
Yeah. That.
For Robert De Niro's, you're not in the circle.
Stiller's the son. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important, right? Just to know that you have those people who are going to give you the truth. And it might be a hard truth, but at least they're going to tell you the truth. And then you can get your shit together and move on. I do think that's really important.
And on the flip side of that, though, having those same people be the ones to tell you when you are second guessing yourself in a ridiculous way. We've both experienced that where it's been like, I don't think I can do this. I'm really nervous about this. And somebody will be like, are you crazy? You were built for this. You've done this 100. And they're just that person. They're not even trying hard to tell you that, but they just remind you of who you are. Yeah. Speaking of movies, we're on a movie vibe. If you've ever seen The Incredibles, there's Edna Mode and she's like hitting Elastigirl with the thing. She's like, pull yourself together. You are Elastigirl. We need those. We need those people in our lives to say, what are you talking about? You're a bad bitch. Get it together. Go do your thing.
Yeah, 100%. And community, I've said it before, your network is your net worth because they're the people that are going to carry you through those harder times when you're feeling the imposter syndrome. And to your point, they're going to put you in check, right? What? Why are you saying these things?
Yeah.
And they're going to tell you to get your shit together.
Absolutely. In the best way possible.
Yeah. It's all out of love. And they know what you're truly capable of, even when you're doubting yourself.
Yeah. And I've been through a couple different programs that'll tell you for an internal script. For speakers, they'll tell us, have your move, your power move before you go out on stage. What's your power move that takes all of those nerves out of your system? And different people have different things. Or do you have a different saying that you say to yourself right before a big meeting or a presentation? Or do you have one program I did? It was really fun. It was through Unleash Her Power Within with Carissa Kuchis. She had you name your alter ego. And it was your alter ego could be they could be the docile version of you that you're tucking away where you tell them to go away, or they could be the baddest version of yourself that you're going to bring out. Then you do all right, knock, knock, mistress of all evil. Here we go. And then you assume your new identity. And it seems so silly, but if you can give yourself an internal script, a power talk, a power move, whatever it is, every time you're feeling that imposter syndrome creep up, when you go in there, you'll knock it out of the park because you'll just get yourself in that state of mind.
So funny. Going back to the Women in Executive Leadership course, the first day when we all met each other, we had to stand in the front of the room in a big circle and everybody had to do some sort of power stance and talk about themselves. And so I did like the Molly Shannon superstar.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
But yes, the power stance, I think it's big too, especially with women, because a lot of women tend to not take up space. And one of the things I did in that class, and just in general, I always have shit everywhere, right? So I had my laptop, my notebook, other papers, my bags, and I basically took up my entire desk. And I'll never forget, the woman leading the class walked up to me and was like, I love this. And I was like, my messiness? What chaos? And she was like, no. She's like, a lot of women tend to come in and they will put their stuff in a small pile and they just stay very contained and confined. And I just run out. And men, if you're ever in a classroom, you will notice that a lot of men tend to spread out. I don't know that it's so specific for women now that they don't spread out, but like, just like crap's everywhere.
I was compared to sitting in the middle seat on an airplane. If you've ever sat in the middle seat on an airplane and you see the two people next to you are just sprawled out, like legs open, arms on the armrest, no. First of all, I can't do middle seats, number one, too claustrophobic. But two, when I have had to be in a middle seat, I'm pushing my elbows here. And my leg, yeah, don't put your leg in my seat space respectfully. Unless you have a little kid, then I'm like, free reign, I don't care. Whatever keeps the kid happy on a plane, they can be in any space. But if you sit on a middle seat in a plane, you've definitely experienced when other people take up your space and you need to put a power stance on what you're going to do.
And I agree with it.
Maybe that can be a power stance guidance for someone. All right, you're in the middle seat. Take up your space before you go on.
Yeah, that should be the direction.
Yeah. So, okay. I think for our listeners then, as we start to round this out, a really important reminder is that imposter syndrome usually shows up right before massive growth or during it. It's at the time where you're really growing the most, you're rising up, you're in rooms that you didn't have access to before, you're speaking to audiences that didn't have your attention before, And so you start to doubt yourself in those moments. But if you can catch that and just remind yourself when you're feeling that, it's usually because you're growing, and growth is uncomfortable and it causes you to question if you belong there. But that's that sneaky little devil
Yeah.
on the shoulder.
And I've always been a proponent of get comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially since I go to the gym and I'm like, all right, lift heavier. It's going to be painful initially, but it'll be fine in the end. And so it gets true for any environment that you're in, is just get comfortable being uncomfortable because you're growing.
And you belong. You belong where you are. If you didn't belong, you wouldn't be in the room. So whatever room you're in, you were meant to be there. And there's only one you. So show up as that person.
Yep.
All right. Great place to end. We'll see you next time.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Follow us on all your socials, NFNA Podcast. Until next time.